This is the first time we've seen each other in a long time. 20 years. Gareth, Todd, come up here. Debra, great to see you. Haven't seen you in 20 years. I'm Mike Ryan, one of the producers. Derek, the other producer. Richard Masur.
Sorry.
Stephen.
Yes, sir.
And Debra Monk, and of course Todd. Little bit of a shock. Haven't seen it in a while. Amazing. Just want to maybe just talk a little bit before we take some questions. Let's just start a little bit. Stephen, can you talk about what it was like jumping in here and literally jumping in because we had shot a few days with Chris Penn and it didn't work out with Chris, and Stephen was literally called at the last minute. And if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was scared to death. I did my first movie like 2 weeks before this. And then I was supposed to play a small part, and then unfortunately something happened with Chris, God rest, and I just was so excited, I've seen all of Todd's movies. I loved all his movies. Some of my friends had been in his movies, and all of a sudden I would get a chance to be in one, and I was scared, but I was enthusiastic, and I was just like, I'm going to do my best to serve whatever it is I'm going to do. I mean, I didn't drive. I don't have a driver's license. I still can't drive. And they had me driving on the highway. We did 2 takes, and I remember the 3rd take, you're like, just do one more. And I was like, this poor girl has never been kissed. She's got nothing in life, you really want to risk her whole life. And you're like, I guess we got it. But he was amazing, and you were amazing, and you were amazing, and it was a wonderful experience.
It was kind of amazing because just on the fact that we were in production and we lost our lead as much as we tried to make it work with Chris, and you were off book. You had the lines down. You were up like the next day, which always just kind of was amazing to me. That you could get off book so quick, or how that happened. I know that's just...
There's less dialogue in film usually than theater. I mean, it's the job. I was supposed to show up and try to be good for Todd and for you guys. So it really helped that the young girl that I did the most of the scenes with, she was amazing to work with. And that was the first time I was working, I had a real scene partner, and she made it easy, and Todd made it easier. And I try to do the job.
Debra, is there anything you can tell us about Mama Sunshine and your preparation? How did you and Todd work out your character, Mama Sunshine?
The kids were what made it so special. Those children were unbelievable, and so were their parents. It was, seeing the whole film, it's just really terrifying and upsetting. I'm still shaking from watching it. But those children were so beautiful. They all thought they were going to get a TV series when this was finished. Remember that? They really were so into it. They believed everything. They were so sweet around the table. And when we first started the film, I was so worried about them because they were really, some of them very ill and really hard to move, and we'd be very careful. By the end, I said, get in here and sit down. It was like we all got to know each other. I became like their real mother. So I just remember those children. That was so beautiful to be with those incredible children, and you. So beautiful. I believe Mother Sunshine really believed what she believed in the children, and she believed that they needed and should have had a home. I never really believed that she knew all the rest of it. That was maybe me just being naive, but so it made it, my job was to take care of the kids. So that's what I did, or tried to do.
Richard, any strong memories from the time?
I have to tell you, I was in a fog the entire time I did this film. And the first time I saw it, I must have been on drugs. I don't remember this movie the way I just saw it. Well, 20 years is a long time when you're my age. But, well, it's a short time when you're my age, actually. But, no, I have very crystalline memories of a couple of moments that aren't in the film. It's something with a dog in a basement, and yelling at this little Japanese American boy, and that all went away. And I remember screaming outside that door and freaking her out. I remember that. Because you guys were all inside the room, and I was just out there trying to scare the crap out of everybody. But what I was going to say is, and this is the amazing thing about this film, this man is a great writer. Do you all know what a great writer this man is? I mean, he's a brilliant writer. So is he. But you had a couple of ringers. You had me, you had Ellen, you had the amazing Debra Monk. And she can be anything, anytime, anywhere. Just straight. But what you drew out of these other people who had little to no experience, and that was one of the most extraordinary things about watching this again. I guess the first time I was just saying, where's the scene with the dog? I don't know. Anyway, but it was no, I'm exaggerating. It was a great experience, Todd, and I told you that, I think, almost every day we were working on it. It was so weird and wonderful. It really was.
But also just a little bit to bring us back. For me, watching it was really traumatic because in front of the camera, behind the camera, and to the side of every frame is the disaster going on with the production. It was a low-budget production, staffed mostly by students. Derek and I were really two of the only people who really, besides the DP and Dave Durenberg, I'd like to mention both Dave Durenberg and our DP, Tom Richmond, are no longer with us. It was very much about 4 or 5 key crew people holding it together with a ragtag crew of interns, and the actors were very patient with us as we were learning to make a film. It was all around very much a collaborative event, as we were all kind of struggling to make the film. But it was a struggle physically in many ways.
Was there a blackout one day? There was a blackout, because I remember you came over to me and you're like, there's a blackout, it's possible it's the entire eastern seaboard, don't worry, we have water and supplies. Action!
Yeah. Todd, what can you say to us? Have you watched this restoration version yet? Have you seen this version?
I was involved in the color correction, but I was watching it without dialogue. So I feel I have watched it enough times in the cutting room, even though that was 20 years ago, that there was enough for a lifetime for me. But I'm really grateful to Visit Films for having restored this movie and given it an afterlife. I told Caitlin from IFC, I was just so shocked. I thought only like 3 or 4 people would show up. And they really did some job getting people here.
Todd, can I point out, if you can see, how many people here were barely born when we made this film? There are so many young people here. Thank you so much for coming and appreciating what this man does. Really, that's extraordinary. Maybe it's the venue. I don't know. Maybe it's You're all from NYU? No,
Any pressing questions? Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like that a lot of the actors would maybe read the script and be confused if it was a comedy or drama. So did you have trouble kind of making the performances cohesive? Because it seems like this is maybe the only movie that is funnier when you don't tell them it's a comedy. So
nobody heard that. The question is, did we have a problem figuring out whether it was a comedy or a drama while we were doing it? Because as the gentleman said, this is one of the only movies that is probably funnier if you don't tell people it's a comedy. The answer is no.
Okay.
I don't think anyone up here was ever thinking about is it a comedy or a drama. We were just trying to do the scenes that this man wanted us to do, right? I'm not.
Yeah, I don't think I told any actor it's a comedy. I would never do that. It's always, you have to be true to the emotional
right.
moments, and that's what I rely on my actors to elevate what I have written. I think if I had said it's a comedy, it might have made people more self-conscious.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
You don't want that to enter the room. It's all very delicate, all of this material, very delicate. So you have to be respectful of what people, anyone who's a part of this movie, we knew it was all very troubling, difficult material. And so it takes a certain amount of courage, I think, for them to put themselves on the line. And so I'm always indebted and grateful to them.
Yeah.
Another question, yeah.
In all of your films, Todd, all of your films have just these really wonderful child performances. Like, you get these wonderful performances out of the kid actors in all of your movies. And I've always wondered, how differently do you approach working with child actors versus adult cast?
Well, I don't know. I think the wonderful thing about children is, this is an exception here, that they know their lines, and I can never assume, with all due respect, I can never assume that a grown-up actor will know his lines. So that's one of the things I love about kids, and adults often like to improvise, not all, but many like to improvise. But children, I have never seen them want to improvise. They like to be told very specifically what to do, what the point is. So I think that if you are respectful to the child, just as you are towards any other actor, they will give you gold. It's all about developing that sense of trust, so that they, when this movie's over, can feel good about having been a part of it. Now, it's true, the movie's not really for children. I would never let my children see this movie. But now they can, and they're going to see it. When we had a cast and crew screening, I do remember, the little 8-year-old girl, that she just whispers in her mother's ear about what's going on here. But just as I might have done at that age about what's going on in the story. And it's usually the grown-ups, of course, who are more troubled than the children themselves.
And of course, like in the last scene by the river with Otto, those scenes when we filmed the children, they were not with the other person. Otto wasn't there, of course. Yes.
I don't even remember what I said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Parents were always present.
Yes. I mean, you can't. I've worked with many children in movies, and you when you cast a child, you are don't want only the approval, but you want the support of the parents, the whole family, as they embark on the project. And I leave it up to the parents to discuss with their children to what extent they want to explain or not explain. But for me, all that matters is them being true emotionally to what is transpiring on screen.
Question?
So I actually went to Hebrew school with Hannah Freeman, one of my girls who plays Viva. So it was right after she filmed this, and she was saying, I shot this really weird movie, and she couldn't really explain it. But aside from that, there's a story that, I don't know if it's true or not, Todd, that you spent your life savings making the film. Is that accurate?
No.
The question was, did Todd spend his life savings making this film?
No, but I can tell you, Hannah is a successful lawyer from what I have heard, who happens to be, went to high school with another girl that age whose father I know, but this movie, I don't know. I'm just very fortunate, not only with this one, but I think with all of my movies, that they got made at all.
Yeah.
My hope is I'll be able to make another movie, but we'll see.
I was wondering if there was a main message that you wanted your audience to get from the changing of the body of the characters.
Question about the multiple actors playing the one character.
I don't think I could explain it, but I respect the question. It obviously it's a kind of conceit, I think for some audiences they embrace it, and others are maybe put off by this unusual casting concept. But messages and explanations, I teach actually at the film school. It's NYU and the graduate program, and I always tell my students, please, no messages, no explanations. So I'm not trying to avoid, but I think maybe it's just good to digest, and maybe at a certain point it may click.
Right. Yeah.
First of all, love the film.
Thank you.
I love the dollhouse. But I wanted to ask. I wanted to ask the choice to make it a sequel to Welcome to the Dollhouse, a sort of sequel. And how did you come about with the idea and also believing it is Dawn's family?
The question is the relationship of Dawn Wiener here to Todd's other films prior to this one, and Dawn Wiener's linkage to this.
I can only tell you I never had a grand plan of a career. I didn't know I'd have a career. It's just a quasi career, but it just worked out that way, and of course when I gave Dawn Wiener one somewhat bleak trajectory in this movie, I give her a more sunny and romantic one in Wiener Talk later on, and because I always feel that all our paths are we know. We go left or right, and so much can turn out so differently. My whole career is on a dime; it could just have gone nowhere. So, but as far as all these characters, if I find them handy in a way, they just come to me. It wasn't part of a plan. I really didn't have a plan. I don't think you could look at my movies and think there was a plan.
Yeah.
So I know people can kind of come to their own conclusions, but For you, what was the significance of the word palindrome as the name of your movie?
Question about palindrome and the way the word palindromes works into the whole structure of the film.
Yeah, it's a reasonable question, just like the lady over here. Very reasonable question. And I think maybe the best is maybe the easiest access to this puzzle is listening, taking to heart the way Mark Weiner talks about it towards the end of the film. I always felt terrible for Mark Weiner. Matthew Faber had played him. He died during COVID, but not from COVID. But I had, I think, some illness over the years, I know. But lovely, lovely young man. And I always felt for this character who has the finger pointed at him as accused of terrible crimes, and yet I was always a little bit frustrated. It seemed a lot of people thought he really was guilty, and that always saddens me because no, he's not. But I'm not answering your question. I'm sorry. I can't. I have to adhere to my mantra of never explain. So that's what I am.
But also point to the Screen Slate interview that's out today, which is actually an amazing interview that talks a lot about, that Todd talks about the film in a way that's actually quite enlightening. Yeah, in the back.
Can you talk about the casting process and put the ensemble together?
About the casting process and how this amazing cast came together.
Well, I can say with Debra here, you know, I don't even remember if I told you, if I mentioned it, but I was very, some of the fuel for this came from this documentary I had seen a year or so before called My Flesh and Blood. Anybody?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
One. But I knew, I mean, Richard, I can't remember if I knew you or if I met you in the audition. That's what I don't remember.
I think I'm as foggy as you are, but I believe I came in. We had a chat, and I didn't see a script. You just told me a little bit, and I said I would love to work with you, and I think
I had just known you from earlier work that you had done from the movies, so I know what I could get from you. I don't remember reading you. I don't think.
No, I don't think so.
This one here, we definitely had an audition. We had maybe a couple, and that's one of the things that I had learned, that when you are casting a movie, one of the reasons you see so many actors is because things always just happen. And I had been, you know, it wasn't when Chris, dear soul, I loved Chris, very tragic, but that he just couldn't do it. Even though he wanted to, he couldn't. He had a serious drug problem. But I didn't waver. I mean, I knew I had this one in my head if things fell apart, you know. I didn't have to like go and review a list, you know. I knew who I was going to. So that was all very useful for, you know, in the casting. When it comes to the children, if you're talking about them, once the casting director had put out notices everywhere in different organizations, and I think what I wanted to do ultimately was I was looking for a certain kind of quality of vulnerability and innocence, and I kept my direction, I think, with each of them fairly consistent, so that I was hoping that would provide a kind of glue to help cohere all of these different performers.
Yeah.
Do you have any books or authors that you like to read?
Any books or authors that he likes to read?
A million. There's so many, too many. I don't know where to begin, but there are a lot more books that I have not read that I still would like to read than there are movies.
Is there one that you can name?
Is this worse than your graduate class? Because it's feeling that way.
I'm just trying to, because if I could name someone, but I'm thinking if I don't name the other, I know writers, and I don't want anyone to feel bad if they're not mentioned, so I'll just say, I like to read.
Very good.
So I'm from New Jersey, and I know you're also from New Jersey as well. And I noticed that a lot of your movies take place in New Jersey, so I was wondering if there was a reason why you chose for most of your movies to take place there, or it's just a familiarity?
I'm sure if I grew up in the city, my movies would be anchored by the experience I had growing up here. But since I grew up in the suburbs, I've been shaped by them. This movie does take place also, as you know, in Kansas, and that was a big challenge. Scouting, finding that house, and I so fell in love with it that they could find Kansas up in New York. And I felt it was like God had planted the house right there, and I just it was immaculate, and so it was really the producers and the location manager, had really fulfilled what I was really afraid of, that replicating the feeling that we're out in Kansas, and we did it right here in New York.
Yeah, the situation was that we were up at Bard College, and I knew folks up at Bard during the summer, and we lived in the dorm, and a lot of the cast lived in the dorm, and a lot of the students from NYU and Bard helped us, and we used that as a base from which we found Kansas, although we also did a road trip out west to get some shots. But the house was, near Red Hook. Another question before we go? Yeah.
I'm just a little curious about the script and proportion of how much of the script was as is and then never changed, or were there parts of it that you shaped on certain actors or certain people came in the room and you wanted to craft certain things based on the sensibilities of the person, or was it more of they had to fit into the archetype of what was already written?
Yeah, he's asking about the script, about how strict I was, how it was constructed, etc. I can just say that every time I make a movie and I write a script, before I go into pre-production, every time you write a script, you think this is genius, because anything less, why make it? You have to have that faith that, oh my God, this is going to be an amazing, this is the best script ever. And then, of course, you get humbled in the cutting room, and the script is not genius, and there are a lot of things I'm always removing. And in fact, in so many movies, I'm always removing an actor performance, not because they didn't do a good job, but because looking at the whole, what I feel the story needs. There sometimes is improvisation. Sometimes an actor wants to improve on the script. It doesn't often happen, really. And the actors here were very respectful and didn't tell me that they didn't. Stephen, who's a great writer, didn't tell me how to rewrite it.
But you won't want to hear this, but you're a singular talent. We couldn't come to do a movie, we come to do a Todd Solondz movie. So I'm not gonna fuck with your words. And watching it, what Jennifer was beautiful and humane.
That's, yeah, I mean, thank you. I take, that's a big compliment from this year, writer here. Yeah, there have been, in some movies, I have given a little bit of a, let actors, and some actors don't like to improvise, but some do, and I have allowed them to be creative in this way. But it's always within very strict parameters. I need very strict parameters. Sometimes they don't want to at all. You always have to do what your actor needs, because you want your actor to shine. You want your actor to make you look like a better writer than you really are.
Good, I think we have time for one more. Can't see. Yeah, right here in the front.
Well, hi. So with that in mind, was there a lot on the cutting room floor from this film? And if I may be so crass, will we ever see the third story from Storytelling?
No. Although I actually
Oh wow, I didn't even know there was
shared
one.
with my students. I did actually share with my students, and they said I made a mistake.
Episodes.
I had, let's not get into storytelling, but with this movie, I always feel, I know with DVDs, they always want extra scenes that you didn't include, but I feel like it's like when you read a book, you want all the stuff they cut out, it doesn't make sense. This is the choice I made, and this is the one I embrace.
Good. All right. Thanks so much, everybody, for coming out.
Thanks a lot for sticking around.